Yeah, so I mean, I don't even know where we should start with this. You guys were chatting before I got here, so
Well, I think given the space that we're talking about old homes in the town, we should start maybe with the history of the town a little bit. If you can give us kind of an over under of like when did the town really begin? What was it when it started? And
it's not as easy of a question as it would seem. Like it's not Phoenixville wasn't founded in 1851; it was established because before that it was Manavon. Like what's the story? Because I know this was all part of the Welsh Tract. Mm-hmm. So when does this go from being just open farmland to being a borough?
Yeah, so it was probably, it wasn't until like the 1820s where you actually see the word Phoenixville being used. They're actually labeling the town as Phoenixville, even though it wasn't incorporated yet. So it was about right around the same time period that the Reeves family came and bought the Phoenix Iron Works and opened it up and made it become what it became. But it was at the same exact time that you'll see the actual name Phoenixville being used around 1828-ish time period.
And what was it really before then? Like when people moved in and like when did the ironworks actually start? Like what was it before it truly became Phoenixville?
Yeah, so before Phoenixville it was just farmland.
Okay.
I mean, if you go back far enough, this whole area was all a very high population of Lenape Native American areas. So, and the Lenape in this area date back to approximately almost about 8,000 years ago. So they occupied this area for a long time. And then in the late 1600s is when you're going to see like the first white European settlers coming here. Outside of town at that time, it wasn't outside of town. It was all one. But what would be considered now Schuylkill Township, not too far out of town was where the Anderson farm is, still actually called the Anderson farm. And that's where Patrick Anderson and his family had settled. They were Scotch-Irish Quakers. So they were there. And then you had another family that came early, the Buckwalter family. And they were Pennsylvania German Mennonite. So most of the area, like the early white settlers were either Quaker or Mennonite. But the guy who had purchased the tract of land from the Penn family, who had named it Manavon, that's one of the questions I get a lot. Is honestly like people are like, where's the name Manavon from?
Wales.
Yeah, it's from Wales. Yeah, some people think it's like some Lenape word or something, and I'm like, no, it's a Welsh word. He named it after his like church parish that he was from in Wales. Yeah.
Best thing about southeastern Pennsylvania is you have almost completely incomprehensible town names, and they're all either Welsh or Lenape.
Yeah.
And nothing else.
Yeah. And it's really interesting. This area, I just did a talk about this. Actually, the two History in the Rocks ago, I did a talk about the history of immigration in Phoenixville. And I start from right in that very beginning and kind of give people an idea of like who was here, who was actually living here. Because one of the concepts, or one of the false concepts that happens sometimes is that you'll see these names attached to the tracts of land, and some of those people actually never even lived here. They're just the ones who actually owned the property as investments, and some of them never even stepped foot in the United States.
Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah, like directly in this area, like like Vincent Township. That was named after Sir Matthias Vincent, so like people like him, he never even stepped foot in the United States, but.
Just own the
it's
land.
named after him.
That's crazy.
But
that's nuts.
So when you break it down and see like who actually came here and lived here, and you had of course the Starr family who came here and built the house that we're in, built in 1732. James Starr were also Quakers. But what's interesting is at that time in Phoenixville there was not a Quaker church. The closest Quaker church was you were almost getting down towards like Radnor area where all the Welsh Quakers were. I
went to a Quaker school in Plymouth Meeting for kindergarten.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, so I guess that would probably be where some of that started.
Yeah, absolutely.
Here.
Yeah, in Plymouth Meeting right there, at that Quaker school that you went to, in the Plymouth Meeting House was a huge stop on the Underground Railroad.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
That whole intersection there. Yeah.
It was a weird spot. I'll be honest. Like I was only there for a year, but like we would go and do like a Quaker like meeting in the mornings. We'd have morning meeting in the Quaker meeting hall.
Are there like is there or are there well made and like good comprehensive movies about the Underground Railroad? Because I feel like I haven't heard or seen of one, and that would be a great story.
It would be.
Ryan Gosling as Harriet.
No, it'd be Chris Pratt.
Yeah, Chris Pratt. The only one I could think of was there was one that came out, I don't know, it was like 5 years ago, and it was like, I think it was called Harriet.
Okay.
And it was like, loosely based, kind of thing. There was like so much that could have, there's so much more out there. There really isn't. You think that like of all subjects, I mean, and around here is some of the most amount of its history is right here in southeastern PA. By far.
You were still like a little bit in danger of the slave catchers coming after you.
Oh yeah.
Like we're not that far north of the Mason-Dixon line.
I was gonna say because this was right on the line, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Like Philly was considered like
you
location.
were free, but that also
Chester
depended
County.
a lot on the local authorities and how much they wanted to deal with the South.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was I do a talk on the Underground Railroad as well, and a Phoenixville one. That's actually the next History on the Rocks.
Oh, really?
February we're doing a history of the Underground Railroad in Phoenixville for Black History Month.
Oh, that's
That'll
awesome.
be fun.
Yeah, so one of my favorite guys to talk about is a guy who literally lived right on the edge of town here, Elijah Pennypacker, who's Samuel Pennypacker's first cousin.
I did not realize that the Pennypacker family was A, from Phoenixville, or B, as influential as they were. We had a hall named after them at Penn State.
Yeah.
But I was like, oh, cool, that must have been a donor. I didn't realize that it was, like the premier family of this area.
Yeah, they were so involved. And Elijah had a farmhouse right off of White Horse Road, right off the intersection there of 23 and White Horse Road, and it's still there. He was an official station master on the Underground Railroad. That he had direct contact with all the people that were the people to be like involved in the Underground Railroad, down to the city, down to Maryland and other areas. And it's estimated he processed approximately 300 to 400 people through his property right here in Phoenixville.
That's nuts.
And then his routes were generally to get from right on the corner there, bring them back down Nut Road and down Star Street, right through the borough, and they would bring them through like the back end of the property where the Reeves property was, back behind the Holy Ghost Church, and bring them back through the end of that property there. And then that was the safest way to get them over the river, because like you were saying, the bounty hunters knew like this area was such a hotbed, so they started coming up in this area. And he actually had multiple encounters with bounty hunters where he almost like got stopped, because he would actually himself would take a wagon, because he was a doctor. He would take a wagon, put him in the back of the wagon, and cover the wagon. And one time he was actually stopped by a bounty hunter, and he like lied his way out of it. It's crazy, and this happened right here.
Everything I'm hearing sounds like a phenomenal story that needs to be told.
Oh yeah, it's still not out there enough. In my opinion.
That's a cool one. I did not know. I knew that this area had a lot of Underground Railroad stops. I mean, I've been in multiple houses that have like hidden chambers that were for that purpose.
Yep.
I didn't know that it was such a vibrant part of Phoenixville's history.
Yeah, it's really cool.
Yeah, it is kind of crazy. The more I grow up and the more this town sort of gets its name back. I didn't growing up. I never understood how big of a deal Phoenixville used to be, and then as it's sort of come back into prominence as the town has been healing from everything that happened in the 80s and 90s. It's crazy to see like all of these old articles, old materials coming out. I mean, you've got the little thing of the Phoenix wheel right there. I didn't know that we had that before the Ferris wheel.
Yeah.
I didn't know we beat that.
Yeah.
To the punch.
So in that vein, so we got up to the point where the Starr family makes this house a reality.
Yeah.
So let's go from there to when Phoenixville became Phoenixville.
Oh yeah, sure. Yeah. So when you had the Starr family here, and then like almost at the exact same time, you had a guy by the name of Moses Coates, who is connected Coatesville.
Okay.
Yep. And he built a log house on the north side of Phoenixville at that time. And between the two of them, they pretty much encompassed the entire town,
Really?
with just their farm property. And then
nice.
and not too long after that, you had some more people coming in where they actually built a Mennonite church in Phoenixville that was originally located across the street from where the Chamber of Commerce is now, up on Main Street between 5th and 6th Avenue. And that was in the 1700s. And then so things started to kind of build up a little bit more with the population. There was a couple more farmhouses built, right, like, off of Route 23. At the time where you had the Star House here, it was, not too long after that, by the mid 1700s, where you had a couple more buildings built right on Nut Road, like right on Route 23, still within what would become within the borough. One of them is now it's just changed. It used to be Pat's Pizza, and now it's
Ardelli.
the
Which,
Ardelli.
believe it or not, the first Ardelli, my grandmother's brother started in
no way.
Paoli.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah,
that's
he's,
cool.
He's no longer living now, but yeah, it was kind of wild because that's like right down the road from where Kat and I live.
Oh, cool.
And I was like, wait a second, like, when did this happen?
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm glad they came in there, and they really did a
too.
nice job with that place, and you got something really nice in there.
I grew up going there.
Because that building also being one of the most historic buildings in this area. I mean, it was originally, of course, the Fountain Inn, and it was used as a meeting headquarters during the encampment of Valley Forge. The British were in there before the Continental Army was at Valley Forge. And then you go right up the road, you had the General Pike Inn, and a couple other like inns and hotels. The Bull Tavern down the road a little bit. So there was all these inns and taverns located on Route 23 because 23 was a main corridor, directly into Philadelphia. Going out west. So that helped the town itself start getting more populated as well.
Because anytime you're coming between like Berks and Philly, you're going to pass through here.
You have to, and
No 422 back then.
No, yeah, that's for sure. So, going into you had multiple changes of the names in this time frame too. So when you had the Manavon tract name didn't last terribly long. It then was carved out into what would become the first township. So Charlestown Township, named after Charles Pickering.
Okay.
And then Charlestown Township.
Those not from this area, that's a big name.
yeah, big time. Who, ironically, his story is really kind of bizarre. He was originally from Philadelphia.
Okay.
He made his way up 23, up towards where we know is like the Pickering Creek, or where like the Moore Hall Dam is, where the waterfall is. He got into that area because there was rumors that he could maybe find gold in the Pickering Creek, and and it never obviously happened. And he like kind of lived here but didn't, and then like had that tract of land, the Pickering tract. So anyway, Charlestown Township gets named. That once was what we know now as Charlestown Township, Schuylkill Township, Phoenixville.
Charlestown is still beautiful.
And it's just gorgeous out there. It really hasn't changed much,
No.
probably from that original
You
tract.
drive down Charlestown Road, and you're seeing houses that were clearly almost as old as this one.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Then Schuylkill Township was carved out of that, which that was Phoenixville was part of that. So Phoenixville was known as Schuylkill Township until 1849. So 1849 is when the borough was officially incorporated. Like I said, you see the name being used for about 20 years before that, but then it became official. So right in that time frame, from like the 1820s to the 1840s, is when the town's population growth would boom.
Is that so?
time.
When did the ironworks move in?
So the ironworks has a interesting history. So the first industry that was there was actually built by the guy who built this house.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so at the same time this house was built in 1732, he was also constructing a grist mill for producing grain, and that mill stood approximately close to where the foundry building is now.
Okay.
And they used the French Creek as a water source. And then so he had that business for maybe about 20 years or so. And then after that, it changes hands multiple times into all kinds of random things. And then in the 1790s, it becomes a nail producing factory. And when you really look at like some major things that you could say like what really catapulted the town, like early, it was definitely the nail factory in the 1790s.
Okay.
They figured out they could make stuff out of metal, and they were like, this is going to be our identity now.
And we don't have to import this product from England.
Yeah.
And so this was a big deal. And then they were bringing down anthracite coal from northeastern PA to produce the actual wrought iron nails. So the nail factory was actually one of the largest producers of nails in the colonies.
Wow.
Yeah. And because they were using anthracite coal, that process made them much stronger as a product. So it was a big deal. And then so the nail producing lasted for a short period of time. And believe it or not, that after that, there was companies and things that tried to go in there, and they all went bankrupt.
Interesting.
Which that plays into the.
So you guys say that
name.
one company really nailed it.
Yeah, yeah.
No, it was fitting. That was good.
Yeah, it all comes into the name of Phoenixville itself. This leads into it. So so then it wasn't until the 1820s, late 1820s, is when the Reeves family came here to Phoenixville and said, "All right, we're going to give it a shot." They purchased the property, and then they immediately start building more buildings.
Okay,
things that would have been more advanced and proper for that time period. And they had this idea they're going to produce iron, and so. By doing so, they actually named the company the Phoenix Iron Works. And so that is the first iteration of that name. At the same time, there was a guy who they had brought in as to become their main engineer. And he was a German immigrant. His name is Louis Wernwag. And he lived in a pretty nice big house that was once located on the north side of Phoenixville. But it overlooked... there was nothing in front of it at that time, right? So he can see a direct shot down to like the blast furnaces. And he is credited with the guy who came up with the name of Phoenixville.
Interesting.
Where he actually said it was a combination of two things. It was seeing the flames coming out of the blast furnaces where it looked like a phoenix, but he also used it as a representation of all the businesses that were there beforehand. And now this one's here. This one looks like it's here to stay, and this business has risen from the ashes, and that's the name Phoenixville.
And it's been very fitting ever since. I mean, if you look at again what happened in the 80s and the 90s up through the 2000s, and now we have built something out of the ashes of what used to be here. So it's kind of it's a very fitting name for the area.
Yeah. It really is
like
perfect.
Determinist.
Yeah, very much so.
And it's super unique. I talk about that in some of my talks and lectures and stuff. Is like. Like you were saying earlier, I was like, so many townships, and areas around here are usually named after a person, like a last name type of thing, or a Lenape name,
or a town in Wales,
yeah. And then you have a name like Phoenixville, which was completely creative, like out of left field, really. Like, I mean, it really was. I mean, this town could have been named. I'm sure
could have been Reeves, Manavon, Star.
If there was like a Phoenixville Facebook group in the 1820s, I'm sure this would have been like this huge online keyboard warrior battle of what we should name the town.
Because you have anonymous poster 789 telling everybody their ideas suck while having behind a fake name. I'm definitely not calling out anybody in our local town Facebook groups. That definitely wasn't a direct shot. I don't know if I have the number right, but I think the point stands.
Yeah, it's still across the bow.
Yeah. So it's interesting, the names and everything like that, and even then, like when Phoenixville becomes a borough, that process started, and it actually took years for them to actually become incorporated, because ironically, there was people in the town who were opposed to it. There was literally people who protested and were opposed to Phoenixville becoming its own incorporated borough.
It is still so amazing to me every time little specific things from history will remind me that humans have always been the same. It's just we haven't had the means to do certain things. Reminds me of the review on the clay tablet of someone's pottery.
Oh yeah, Ian Sear.
Yeah. And it was just essentially a bad Yelp review from 2,000 years ago.
I think 4,000 years ago.
Yeah.
This guy's copper sucks. Don't buy copper.
Yeah, that's what it is. Yeah.
Just the same thing. We've been doing the same thing forever.
Oh yeah, it hasn't changed. It's funny because I've seen the actual documents, and then Samuel Pennypacker, who we referenced a little bit earlier, of course, would eventually become governor of Pennsylvania, born here in Phoenixville. I call him he's the OG Phoenixville historian. He's the guy who was documenting stuff. He wrote the book in the 1870s, The Annals of Phoenixville. But this guy, even as a young dude at that time, he had the idea to literally go and interview and do oral histories with some of these people in the 1840s, 1850s, who were literally still alive during the Rev War.
It's nuts.
If he didn't do that, we wouldn't have any of that documentation. But his father was the guy also instrumental in incorporating Phoenixville as a borough, and he would become the first mayor of Phoenixville, Isaac Pennypacker.
It's one hell of a jump from generation to generation. First guy is the mayor of Phoenixville, next guy's governor of Pennsylvania.
Yeah, I would say so.
Yeah. So we got
Taking those lessons and really applying them.
yeah, really. So we have the ironworks, we have it renamed, and then we have the town renamed to Phoenixville. So, and I know there's a lot of things that happen with.
We bury the outlaw.
Well, that's the thing. So how do we get
We need
from
to get to the title of the video.
from 1850 to now?
Yeah. So in that time frame, you have your first, because the iron company starts really booming in the 1830s, and that has to do with the expansion of the railroad in America.
Makes sense.
Right? So, and that brings
Right up my alley.
brings it right through Phoenixville,
Yep.
right? So I always say, like, Phoenixville had the perfect recipe for what made Phoenixville so huge and big at that time, and the iron company was always involved in it.
Yep.
So producing the rail, and not only did they produce the rail, but the rail's being built right here in our backyard. Then they're like, oh, we need to dig a tunnel, so they dig the Black Rock Tunnel, and then right before that, of course, you had the Schuylkill Canal. So you have the canal and then the railroad and all these things happening. So that helped the iron company really boom. And that drew in immigrants to Phoenixville. And at that time, you're looking at mostly all the Irish immigrants that came to Phoenixville. And they all occupied the north side of Phoenixville. They're the one, built St. Mary's Church. And Phoenixville was very Irish for a pretty long period of time. So that really helped, and bringing all the workers into the town really boomed the town, and it just progressed. Like, I mean, you had the design of the Phoenix Column,
Which is in the Washington Monument.
which is in the Washington Monument. We were talking a little bit earlier. I didn't even get to it, but like all the support structure in Independence, or all the support structure in City Hall in Philadelphia, are all Phoenix columns.
Yep.
So that was patented in 1862. At the exact same time, they're producing the cannons.
Yeah.
So
the Union Army.
It was just like, they wound up producing from 61 to 64. They produced approximately 1,200 cannon barrels. 45% of the Union artillery at Gettysburg were using Phoenixville-made guns. I mean, it's just crazy.
I don't think we get enough credit as Pennsylvania for winning that war.
No, we don't. Pennsylvania routinely gets looked over in modern day for whatever reason.
Yeah, I
It's
know.
like, I'm sorry, we were like, there's a reason we're the Keystone State.
Yeah.
Like,
Oh,
it's not just
absolutely.
location.
I mean, it's like, you have, we just talked about the artillery at Gettysburg, and then at the same time, there is documentation where they said that General Lee did have this whole plan. Of course, like if he was successful at Gettysburg, how he was going to go to the state capital at Harrisburg, and then his next move was to come out east to Philadelphia. And there is documentation that actually said that he did have a talk about stopping in Phoenixville. And the reason why he was going to stop here because he wanted to burn down the Phoenix Iron Company.
What?
Yeah, because he knew about these
how
artillery.
important it
Well,
was,
the plan the plan
Yeah.
of the campaign that Lee was I can't remember if it was properly called the Northern Campaign, but the Pennsylvania campaign that Lee had launched was not supposed to be an invasion of Pennsylvania with Pennsylvania conquered for the rebels.
Yeah, they were supposed to U down back to the D.C., weren't they?
Yeah, the idea was go up, take Gettysburg, Harrisburg, I guess Phoenixville as well, Philadelphia, and then go back down to Virginia.
Yeah.
Because he also wanted to make sure that nobody saw this as an invasion of the Union by the South. Because at the time, the South wasn't playing for conquering the country. They weren't trying to be the United States of America. They were trying to force Lincoln to lose the election.
Yeah, it was more of a show of force and a destruction of morale idea rather than
Well, also, I mean, obviously, if you're taking out the ironworks, again, you take out a major artillery factory, and then you have a much better shot at winning the war.
Yeah.
He needed to take out the industrial centers,
Yep.
and the only one he could reach was Philly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it just, once again, it comes into play, and from that time period, there's so much that happens here in town. You get, the Iron Company becomes Phoenix Iron and Steel, and then they start, with the production of steel as well as iron. And then eventually, switches to Phoenix Steel. But in the late 1800s period is when you have all your huge waves of the other immigrants that come into Phoenixville. The Polish, the Ukrainians, the Italians, Slovaks, and Hungarians. Everybody, came to Phoenixville again because of the steel company. That's what my family, my great great grandfather came to Phoenixville in 1903, and he came here to work at the iron company, so I always point that out a lot too, because that really, in my opinion, once all that, I say, settled in, by like the 1920s, where you had all these different backgrounds here, like that's really what molded Phoenixville, like into becoming Phoenixville, even to this day, where you have people from all these different nationalities and backgrounds. And growing up here in town, my family was Polish from on the north side of Phoenixville, but you had neighbors that were Italians, you had neighbors that were Ukrainian. So you experience all these different. My favorite part was just eating all the food, but like like you had all these different types of things, which still in Phoenixville has like such a variety of backgrounds, and I think it all stems from some stems from that.
That was one of the big things that I did sort of slowly notice. It was a very subtle thing, but coming here I grew up on the main line, and my area was basically all Italian and Irish. Everybody I went to school with was Italian or Irish. Yeah, you had some German smattered in there, but like it wasn't homogenous, but it also was not a very diverse area. Coming out here, it doesn't feel like I'm in an Italian area or an Irish area. Phoenixville feels American because it's just so many different cultures that all came together into one spot. There's no identifiable like primary cultural group. It's just American.
Everybody. Yeah. It's like even with the African American history here in Phoenixville, we talked about the Underground Railroad for a minute, but like there were approximately about 4 free black families that lived here in Phoenixville as early as the 1820s.
Wow.
Yeah. So pre Underground Railroad, and so they were already here as well, real early. And then there was multiple waves that came to Phoenixville, throughout the years, and some of the latter ones came here in the 1950s, 1960s, and that had to do with all the civil rights stuff that was going on. Some of the families that I grew up with, I was friends with, like I got to hear some firsthand stories from some of these people who. This one older lady, her name is Sylvia, and still living up on the north side. And I used to work with her at my first job at Gateway Pharmacy.
Nice.
She knew I loved history, so I'd be like, "Tell me stories," and she would tell me personal stories about why her family came up here, from the South, coming up from areas like Alabama and Mississippi, the hotbed of the civil rights movement, and they were leaving that area because of some of the bad things that they had experienced, and they came to Phoenixville.
Yeah.
And a lot of those families are still here. Like those are current.
Yeah, I mean the Quaker influence in this part of Pennsylvania made it a much more. It wasn't not racist, but it was a much more.
It helped.
It was a much safer place to be.
Yeah,
because there wasn't a culture of slavery in Chester County.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and explain a little bit why that was in terms of the Quakers.
Quakers were just very against any kind of aggression. And that included slavery. They didn't believe that you should own people. They didn't believe that you should be violent with people. They were called Quakers because the idea was they would literally quake at the face of conflict. It was not the Quakers and the Shakers. There were 2 different groups, and they were not. That was not a positive thing that people were calling them.
Interesting.
They
I had no idea that was the origin of that.
Yeah, it was an insult by the more traditional Protestant groups.
Yeah.
So what was
the Puritans were the opposite. The Puritans would string you up if you danced.
What was the original name of Quakers before the essentially slur?
I can't remember.
I'm not sure actually. Yeah, that's a good question. Yeah.
I figure it was probably some sect of the Church of England.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then it same in this area, especially in this area with the Mennonites, same exact
look it up
concept. On they were pacifists. They were anti-slavery. The Mennonites that came here. From Germany, the first German immigrants that came to the United States in 1683 came right to what would become Germantown.
Yep.
And it wasn't too long after that they started, coming out west a little bit into this area, and they were the first people in the United States to actually protest against slavery.
Really?
Yep. Were the Mennonites. So in 1687, they wrote a very well documented. Piece of paper that was signed by all the leaders in the Germantown area, Quakers and Mennonites, and it was an official protest against slavery, a public protest, in 1687.
Wow.
And because they were like, hey, we're leaving for religious freedom.
Yeah.
Because they were being persecuted in Germany. And they were like, we come here thinking this is going to be all cool, and there's people owning other people, and they were like, this is not what we're about.
Pennsylvania was one of the first states to abolish slavery.
Yeah.
In the 1780s. I think it was 1780 we got rid of it. We were like, it wasn't that we didn't free all the slaves. It was that we banned the import of new slaves, the purchase of slaves, basically banned the slave trade, and said that any children born to slaves are born free. So that was Pennsylvania, I think, 1780.
Yeah.
Before the United States is even a country.
Yeah.
Once again,
Also, really quick,
Pennsylvania.
Quakers were formerly the Religious Society of Friends.
You're kidding.
Oh, so that's where the Friends Meeting House stuff comes from then.
And like Friend Central maybe. And stuff
Yeah.
like
Oh,
that.
yeah, definitely. If you look around and there's something called Friends or Friendship in southeastern Pennsylvania, it's probably Quaker.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. No wonder why that didn't stick.
Cool.
Yeah, it's a little easy to make fun of, but
Yeah.
their whole thing was, they were very much I wouldn't necessarily call them liberal because of the modern connotations of the term, but they were an Enlightenment era group who believed in freedom.
Yeah.
And that included their view on the church. They were not a like strict apostolic church. They didn't really have sermons. It was more of a meeting where you just talked about God.
Yeah, it was more of a free thing. I mean, it comes into play with the education thing with the Quakers. Like, obviously, still some of the best schools in the area are Quaker schools. And I talk about one. There was one out here in Kimberton where what's it called?
So that's part of the reason that if you look at Virginia and New England and you see all the violence between the natives and the settlers, at first there wasn't that much of that here. That sort of happened as we pushed west towards and past the Appalachians. They were very big on not causing conflict because again, it wasn't a view of just like, oh, we're not going to fight with other white people. It was we're not going to fight with people.
Yeah, which makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah, out in Kimberton, where Stonehouse Grill is. That was
Love that place.
yeah, but great. Yeah, love their burgers. That building was originally it's called Kimber Hall, and that was built by Emmer Kimber, who came to Kimberton from Philadelphia, which is where Kimberton's name come from. But he built that to be a Quaker girls' school in the 18 teens, and that actually became a prominent Quaker girls' school in southeastern PA, where rich families from Philadelphia were actually sending their daughters out to Kimberton to board there and go to school. And like you were saying, they were super progressive in teaching, where they felt women had the absolute right to have the same education as a man, which was,
Not normal for the time.
unfortunately not receptive everywhere else. And but they were way ahead of it, and they taught like botany, all different types of science, and like art and all kinds of cool stuff.
Which another thing is that I think we've been talking about this a little bit. Philadelphia doesn't get enough credit for what it did for science in the Americas, specifically what would become the United States early on. Philadelphia was the center of science in the United States. It was not D.C. It was not New York. It was not Boston. Yeah. Those places all had stuff they were doing, but when it came to natural sciences, Philadelphia was the meeting place.
Well, now it's very reflected that way in terms of where the heritage went with medicine.
Yeah, Philadelphia has some of the best hospitals, not just in the country but in the world.
Yeah.
Like if you're going to go get cancer treatment, you're going to Philadelphia.
Did you hear that recent story about CRISPR?
No.
Apparently, I can't remember exactly what the story was, but the first child to essentially have a genetic issue, diagnosed early on, was, I believe, cured is the word. I don't want to say determinately cured, but at least in remission to some extent via CRISPR. And it was in Philadelphia with a Philadelphia family with, I think, Jefferson.
Yep.
Oh, that's cool.
Jefferson, Penn, Drexel, Temple, all incredible medical programs and hospitals. That's the thing is like as you get older, your priorities change a little bit. And I'm like, there are a lot of things I would love to do. I would love, it would be awesome to have a ranch in Montana. It would be really cool to live in the mountains somewhere. If I get sick, I want to be in Philly.
Yeah, well, that's
seriously,
it's the medicine and it's also the education.
Yeah.
Like if you want to have a family, we have some of the best schools in the country.
Yeah.
But like even below college, like the high schools in the area are insanely good.
That includes the public schools.
Yeah, exactly.
I went to Conestoga High School, and while I was there, it was rated the top public high school, not in Pennsylvania, not on the East Coast, in the United States.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, we're lucky to have that. And it's a cool little tie around there too with bringing people to Philadelphia because of the medical connection. Our own mayor here in Phoenixville, Mayor Pete. I don't know if you know this story, but
He was just on the show.
yeah, I know. He was telling me about it. Yeah, so how his family came here to the United States, of course, much later. His dad was Swiss, and his mom was Filipino. His mother had received some advanced medical training in the Philippines in terms of the advancement of heart medicine, and she was brought to the United States to work at Jefferson Hospital in Philadelphia, and that's how we got our mayor.
Yeah, which is wild.
That's literally why they came here, and now we get the benefit from it.
Oh, yeah.
So we got up to like the late 1800s, and I want to, since we've done so much of the history of Phoenixville now, I'd love to kind of wrap that up before we get into the mysteries of Phoenixville.
Get into
I know. So like,
Talk about the body.
I know. So like, quick progression of like Phoenixville's kind of. Would you say it's at its peak in the late 1800s?
I would say so. Okay. Yeah, I'd say late 1800s to like the 1920s. It was at its peak in terms of like industrial production. Yeah, because we talked about the iron company nonstop, right? But you had so much other stuff. You had the silk mills, you had the cotton mills, you had DeSano manufacturing, making grinding wheels. I mean, you had a little bit of everything that we were a production haven for like all these different things, and all these people were living here, and the town really just kind of hits its peak in terms of like the housing. Really most of the houses in Phoenixville are built by that time period. You have your outliers, up by the high school and over on the other side of Star Street. Those houses were all built at the classic like World War II, coming back from the war. Yeah. Build your house type of thing. And you had those built like in the 40s and, maybe some in the early 50s. But most of the town as we know it, is already here.
You can tell if you're going house shopping.
Yes.
That's for sure.
Yeah, very much so.
That is
so we reach
very little over 1,200 square feet.
Yeah. So we reach pinnacle kind of like in the we start fading from the peak probably right before World War II. I'm imagining we get some level of a resurgence in at least the ironworks in World War II, given production for wartime efforts. And then, so where is Phoenixville post World War II up until now?
So that's definitely an interesting period there, because you have like, after World War II, and in the 50s and 60s, Phoenixville was still doing pretty well. The iron company, steel company was, not as successful as they were before, but still employed, thousands of people, and the town was, you still had all your storefronts downtown. It was popping. And then, you had the time period, not just in Phoenixville, but in the United States, when we started doing all kinds of interesting trade deals as a nation, and started to export our steel manufacturing, and so Phoenixville was right there with it, with some of the other large steel manufacturing in Pennsylvania,
Bethlehem, Pittsburgh.
I mean, it just took a toll. Once that started happening, it was a gradual, like kind of a long drug out effect of like the iron company just like dying, the steel company just, and it took years for it to be officially closed. And that was, it was officially closed in 1987.
Okay.
By that time, though, for about 10 years, I'd say, there wasn't much production. Most of the buildings were getting closed, here and there, and there wasn't a lot going on. But right in that time period is really when Phoenixville took that, nosedive. Yep. Someone who, said my family's been here for a long time, and then I got to see this, this kind of stuff myself. And that's when, the town really was affected. It was when the steel company closed. And if not only did it affect people's jobs, but it also affected the businesses. It was just a trickle effect. And things were closing, and storefronts were boarded up. I mean, and before long, this lasts, of course, into the 90s. And, when I was here going to Phoenixville High School, say 96, 97, there was just, there was not a lot to do. And as a kid too, like growing up in town, I grew up on High Street, and, it was a little rough up there at times, and I could tell you some stories, but also, so was Bridge Street. Like my parents weren't keen on me, like just going down to Bridge Street and hanging out, because let's just be frank, you can either buy some crack,
Yep.
or see hookers at 12 o'clock in the afternoon, like on a Sunday afternoon, broad daylight. I mean,
tough.
it kind of give people that idea, like that was a real thing.
Well, and very much so, even up into the early 2010s, because I grew up in Valley Forge, and my parents considered getting a PO box for the Valley Forge PO box, Valley Forge post office, just to not have a Phoenixville address, because associating with the town was considered that bad of a thing. And like, we weren't supposed to go into Phoenixville. Now, granted, like occasionally we did, just, for fun. Like we used to in what it no longer exists, but in the ruins of what was the steelworks.
Yeah.
My buddies and I used to ride our bikes around.
We shot a music video there for a school project.
We did, yeah. Our senior year of high school, I directed, he acted in a
that's
music video
cool.
for
Yeah.
that,
It
and
was
one
in
of
that
the
old
abandoned
church.
buildings. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I'm
And-
actually kind of mad that they well, you can't say tore it down because there wasn't much there, but
Yeah.
I'm kind of mad they developed all of that into a bunch of cookie cutter 1,200-foot cardboard townhomes.
Yeah. If you guys want to see that music video, by the way, it's on the Aiden
Don't tell them
Thornberry
that. Don't
music
tell them
channel.
that. Oh, that's-
It's called What's Her Name? Green Day. There's actually multiple videos of
I
us
want to
in
be
high
clear
school.
that the weird way I'm walking at the beginning was not my decision.
His ability to light the cigarette, however,
Was tough. I
tough.
failed to light that cigarette.
it's okay. He was a very wholesome
I
child.
had no idea how to smoke a cigarette.
So it took about 12 takes and the
know you
help
had to
of another
inhale
actor
while-
on set. Yeah.
Yeah, didn't know you had
So-
to inhale while you were.
If you want to see Baby Aiden's, check that out.
Yeah. Oh boy.
But anyway,
And
so
baby Rex and
Yeah.
baby Sarah.
yeah. But anyway, so it gets to the point where, like, for a solid, I would say, 25-ish years there, it was just like, you don't go into Phoenixville.
Yeah.
And then obviously things started to turn around. I always felt
remember,
like
some of my friends in probably 2018. I think we had just started to turn 21, so it might have been 2019. Some of my friends for like New Year's and Thanksgiving were like, "Oh, we should go to Phoenixville," and I was like, because my dad lived on Columbia for most of my childhood. I was like, "What do you mean you want to go into Phoenixville?"
yeah.
Because
Yeah.
I hadn't spent a ton of time here for probably 6 years at that point. But what I remembered was you don't go to Phoenixville.
Yeah,
Like you don't
yeah,
do
exactly.
that. I went to my dad's house. We did not go into town. We got dinner from spots up by like Ace Hardware, like
Yep.
those restaurants.
Like
Are like
Sly Fox, Liberty
yeah,
Union, all them. Yeah.
that's where we would get food. You would not go into the borough.
Yeah. Yeah. So what year do you think started the turnaround? Obviously, in the past like 5 to 8, it's been a really big resurgence.
Yeah.
But what would you kind of mark as like the turning point?
I always say that 1999.
Okay.
That was the year that the Colonial Theater reopened.
Okay.
Okay, so the Colonial Theater officially reopens, and they actually do come up, and I have the original, I don't have it here with me, but I do have the original booklet from 1999 where they came up with the first plans for, it was called the Phoenixville Renaissance. And and also where the little term Renaissance Park comes from. That's next to the funeral. The mural. So the mural was done in '94, and then it started to kind of little things here and there, but not much. '99 when the Colonial reopened, it was literally like a thing where we were like, wow, okay, like
Gave people hope.
this could happen for
Yeah.
real, because the theater was abandoned for
Which is nuts.
for years before that. So when that big of a building could do that, and then you had this little revitalization plan, and things kind of started to happen, and it took years. It was like little things. But I always say too that you have some of these people that were here in Phoenixville, and growing up here in Phoenixville, we saw those bad things, those bad times, but we always still loved the town.
Yeah.
This is where my family's from. Like my family put a lot of sweat into this town, literally. And just so people still had that passion and love for the town that I always say kept its head above water just enough. Because you have other towns not too far from here who have tried to do revitalization who just can't get there because they kind of sunk too low, but you had the people here in Phoenixville, some old timers Dave Freeze and people like that who I learned from, that loved the town and had that passion and said, you know what, we're going to, make this effort to open this theater again. And we're going to keep this fix up this little park, like, and we're going to paint this giant mural on the side of this building, which at that time was kind of unheard of.
Yeah.
And that
Full
was
mural though. And now we have a whole bunch of murals.
Yeah, now we have a whole bunch of murals. Yeah, and it's cool because some of those people that I'm talking about are actually painted into that mural.
Yeah.
Which is great.
Yeah.
I do think it is just prime to what you were saying earlier, is like it's just in the name. Like one of the biggest things about like the ability for Phoenixville to do that is it's part of the town's, mythology, I guess I could say, because it's literally in the branding. Like Phoenixville is meant to do that just by the nature of who has lived here and the design of the whole place.
Yep. Yeah, it was like in that time frame you had like that kind of stuff, and it said like you it's like like that the name itself, like it just like kept people to say like, no, I remember people even saying it like in that time frame, saying like, no, this town was named this for a reason, like like we can actually do this. And I don't think some of these people expect it to be like it is now.
Yeah.
Which, in a good way, with people, I wish some of those people that have passed away since then could see it now and be like, holy crap. Like,
we did it. We pulled it off.
This is it.
But unfortunately, as bright as things can burn in this town, obviously death is a part of Phoenixville in its cycle and in its nature. And part of what we were going to talk about today is the deaths and mysteries of Phoenixville.
Oh, man.
About the body now.
We're going to talk about the body now.
Okay, tell us about the body.
Oh man, the Sundance Kid.
Yes.
So yeah, it's such an interesting subject. It's definitely like one of my favorite Phoenixville historical things. I always say like that's the one thing about Phoenixville with that uniqueness, the name itself. We also have these rando unique stories of people. And like the Sundance Kid is definitely one of them. I literally mentioned his name yesterday to somebody. I'm like, they didn't know much about Phoenixville history, and I'm like, who the Sundance Kid was? And they're like, he's from Phoenixville, and people were just blown away.
Yeah. So just to give the start for those because there are going to be people in the audience that are familiar with the name but might not necessarily know from where.
Yeah, can we get a brief overview of the Sundance Kid, his time with Butch Cassidy?
Like who they were, why they were important.
Sure.
That'd be great.
So yeah, the whole you're going to see that name be associated with Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. Of course, you had the movie that came out in the late 60s with Paul Newman and Robert Redford. So they became one of the most well-known outlaw Western gangs in not just American history, but international history.
Yeah.
I mean, there's no doubt about it. The Wild Bunch. These guys would be the, where we get our terminology and our ideas from train robberies and bank robberies. I mean, these guys were the guys who did it, and they were very good at it for a long time. They were also known as the outlaw gang that lasted the longest.
Yeah, what years were these?
So you're looking at approximately in the 1880s, 1880s until about early 1900s. So it was approximately around 1901 when Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid would leave the United States to go to South America.
There is, by the way, for anybody watching and thinking this sounds familiar, Red Dead Redemption 2 is absolutely based on this.
Yeah.
Yes.
Dutch is Butch, and Arthur is, in my opinion, Arthur and John are kind of a mix of who the Sundance Kid was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and it's interesting to me because I remember from your talk earlier in the year about the Sundance Kid, and there were a couple other stories that I read previously about different people. But at that time, the idea of the West was kind of over, wasn't it, to an extent?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, it was. That whole idea of going out west. During the California Gold Rush, late 1840s, 1850s, 1860s, a little bit, was really that prime time. And then it of course you had a lot of cowboy and activity like that going out there, but it was literally the Wild West. There were no laws. But yeah, by that 1880s time period, it was hitting a little bit of a prime with like things that we might associate with like Deadwood, like we know what Deadwood is and that kind of stuff.
We know what Deadwood is.
Yeah.
Yes.
Fortunately, Aiden and I have been to Deadwood.
Yeah.
It's not a...
We were there during the motorcycle event in Sturgis.
Sturgis.
So,
It was
and we were just passing through to spend the night. And
us and so many bikers
yes,
who were all very nice people.
Yes, it was
Everyone
just-
we met was very, very nice.
it was just very congested. If
I
you were
can
trying to
imagine.
get a Jeep Gladiator through a town that is already very small roads
Yeah.
and have a lot of bikes all over the place.
Yeah, that'd be a problem.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, but like you said, even like late 1800s, early 1900s, like that whole idea of like Western outlaw gangs was really kind of, not say outdated, but pretty much.
Yeah.
And that's, and of course, Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid were the leaders of the gang. There were other gang members. Some of the other gang members were honestly the violent ones. Yeah, Sundance Kid was actually known to never actually kill anybody. So
That's nuts.
yeah, that's for real. But they had their other guys in the gang that were the killers. But by that time, they were like, combination of this not being much of a thing anymore, and then also them also being two of the most wanted guys in the United States.
Yeah.
They were like, we got to get out of here.
Yep.
But that whole them being actually
I go to Guarma.
they were hunted by the Pinkerton detectives from the 1880s until they left New York City in 1901.
Which is nuts.
I mean,
One more score, Arthur, and then we can go to Tahiti.
all those
Literally,
years.
I'm not kidding.
It's amazing how many things repeat as storylines.
Yeah.
Like there's that, and then I'm still doing the research for Heat. Had no idea how much GTA 5 was based off of the movie Heat.
Yeah.
There's an entire a mission that is basically just the first scene of Heat. Like completely recreated.
Oh, really?
It's hilarious.
That's
yeah.
cool.
And like one of the main characters, Michael, is based off of De Niro's character in Heat, which is hilarious to me. But anyway, continue.
That's awesome.
Yes.
Yeah, it's just cool. I mean, like I said, their whole lore, it's still, people identify that as like two of the guys of like the Wild West, in history, and it just, what really then propelled their interest in obviously the movie, like we mentioned earlier in the late 60s, really kind of brought their history back and interest again, back to life a lot. And every so often there's something that happens and it kind of resurfaces. And, but they were still, after they left the United States, they were still pursued by the Pinkertons. The Pinkertons apparently had sent at least one or two detectives to South America to follow them. And the Pinkertons had a detective here stationed in Phoenixville.
In case he came home.
Yep, in case he came home. And he also intercepted all of the mail that were going to his family members who all lived here.
He was technically from Montclair, right?
He was born in Montclair on Jacob Street.
And was Montclair a separate entity from Phoenixville
It was.
at the time? Was it always?
Yes, it always was. So
For those wondering,
Montclair is right across the Schuylkill River from us.
like literally you walk across a bridge and you're in Montclair.
The bridge that names Bridge Street goes into Montclair.
yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, so, he was born right there on Jacob Street, right behind where Lock 29 restaurant is. And he lived there, and he lived in multiple different locations in that area. And when he was approximately about the age of 7 or 8 years old, his family moves over to Church Street in Phoenixville. And they live on Church Street in Phoenixville until he was about 14. And then when he was 14 years old is when he goes out west. He doesn't.
So that's why it was called the Sundance Kid.
That's
Yes.
literally why
Okay,
the
got
name.
it.
Yeah, and that happened because, it seemed like from everything, when you research him and the census records and everything like that, they moved around so much because his dad was always changing jobs. They moved around all the time. Apparently, they never owned their own house or anything. They were always like boarding and doing different things. Sundance had multiple siblings, so yeah, they lived on Church Street, and
Because didn't one of his sisters end up having a house that he came back to visit at one point?
correct, yeah.
Okay. In
So
Phoenixville?
Yep. So he had all his siblings never really left here, so his one sister lived also on Jacob Street, up the other end of Jacob Street, like kind of or past Produce Junction. The other sister lived in the mansion house, which is, as some of us fondly remember as the Pick.
Yeah.
His sister lived in there for a long time. And so they know that he came back and definitely visited and stayed with her in Phoenixville. His grandparents were from here. And his mother's maiden name was Place. And I think you guys might know who I'm talking about, but he who comes to these events and stuff like that, he is a direct relative of the Sundance Kid.
Really?
Yep.
Shit.
Yeah. Do you know Chris?
Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say it's Chris,
Yeah,
right?
he did an album release party here, I think.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's how
I did not know he was direct descendant of that family.
Yeah, that's wild.
That's how I met him.
Not bring that up.
Yeah,
How do you not?
yeah.
How do you not mention that? Like,
it's
oh, hey,
Polish.
my great uncle is, the Sundance Kid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Who I just found out his name was Harry Alonzo Longabaugh. Which
Yeah.
I'm guessing means he was probably Italian.
They were Dutch.
Dutch.
Pennsylvania German. Yeah.
Where did Alonzo
Pennsylvania
come in?
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know, but
One Italian family married in
Yeah.
like, somewhere down the
yeah,
line,
because the family itself, the Longabaus, had been here since the 1700s.
which is nuts.
Yeah, they were just the kind of going back to like talking about some of that early Phoenixville history. They were just a Pennsylvania German family.
Yeah.
That lived here for a long time.
Well, there are
We
segments of-
we learned that the Pennsylvania Germans, Pennsylvania Dutch, were seen as the premier farmers in the United States early on because
Oh, for sure,
in
yeah.
Virginia they couldn't figure out how to farm anything but tobacco.
That's so funny. What is so interesting too, because the segment of my family that goes back the farthest is Pennsylvania German, and it was a guy by the name of, I think it was Peter Stillwagen or Steedwagen. He came over in 1765, joined up with the Revolutionary Army, got captured as a POW for 2 years, and when the British came to his wife's house, I think her name was Mary, they quartered, burned her house down, and then she and all of her children watched the house burn down from
That
the
scene in
field.
Patriot.
Literally, yeah. And so she went to find his commanding officer in the army, and she was like, hey, they burned my house down, help me out. So they stayed with the army. And she ended up being one of the women that contributed to the mythology of the Molly Pitcher people. She would run, bandages and ammunition out to men on the battlefield. So that part of my family was here the entire time, and it's really interesting to me because every one of the male descendants, starting from him in the Revolutionary War, fought in some segment of war, of the military within every major battle or every major conflict that the United States has had up until I think like one or two generations before me.
He's gonna plan on serving in World War III when it happens.
Exactly, yeah. But the funniest part to me is that a German man came here, married an Irish woman, and every single man in that lineage married an Irish woman.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah. So, like, it's so funny because my dad's side, his grandparents were off the boat Irish, and then that side of the family was just consistently marrying Irish women. It's just so funny to me that it's like, you've got Irish, German, a little bit of English, Dutch, and Welsh in this area. But for whatever reason, the Germans and the Irish just, like, really hit it off together, at least in my family's history.
Probably because the English and the Welsh were being racist to them.
That's true. That's a good point.
Probably had a lot to do
chance.
with it.
Yeah.
And then the Welsh were also getting the English were being racist. The English were just being racist to everybody.
That's a good point. They didn't know how to help themselves.
No, they didn't. And I'm talking about my Polish family here, but obviously with my name and everything, I'm very Irish, and my family is obviously not very fond of the English.
Yeah.
We have quite a good history with that in Ireland. So
I found out recently that I am a lot more English than I thought I was, and that was disappointing. Although the one that really was kicking me in the groin while I was down was the French.
Yeah.
I found out I'm partially French, and that just ruined my life.
Well, somebody in my family was a kind English person because my last name is Thornbury, which is exudingly English. It's based off of like an actual town in England.
Or he was really ugly.
That's a good point. That's also fair.
That is possible.
Yeah. Well,
I've seen your dad, so I doubt it.
That's the problem. Is the Thornbury man?
Unfortunately, his father is gorgeous.
Yeah, he is.
Yeah.
It's
a handsome guy.
Yeah, both of my parents are exudingly attractive. I don't know where I came from. But it is funny because that was something that would be slung as an insult at me in like when I was a kid. People would be like, "Your family looks like they're on a soap opera," and I'd just be like, "Am I supposed to be offended?"
Yeah, is that a bad thing?
Also, that is such a EA insult.
It is, yeah, and it was at EA, and it was literally some guy.
I knew it had to be at EA.
Yeah, they were like, "Yeah, your family looks like it's on a soap opera." It's like, I don't know what I'm supposed to do with that, but okay.
Your mom tastes like quarters.
Crazy work.
That's my favorite one that I've heard.
Yeah.
There's a hot mic in a video game. Somebody got killed, and your mom tastes like quarters. What are you talking about?
Crazy work.
But yeah, so
Sundance
Kid. Yeah, we gotta. We're terrible at staying on topic here,
We
but
are.
I'm actually very interested in this because the more I've been looking into it, the more I'm like, oh, I want to. Like, there's a lot we can do with this story for our channel that we could talk
Yes.
about.
And then the last thing I want to do the murder mystery. But
Yeah, but so with Sundance Kid, obviously they're out west. We're on the tail end. This is when we don't have the FBI yet, but the Pinkertons are basically doing that job.
Yeah.
The government's just paying them to hunt people down. Where did they go and when?
Yeah. So, they made their way out from they were out in the, Colorado territory, Wyoming territory, all those areas where they did all their business. And then realizing that, they were, a lot of their gang had separated. They were looking to see what their next move was going to be. And so they devise this whole plan to come back east. And Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid actually separate. They part ways, but they make a whole plan where they're going to do X, Y, and Z, and then meet back up in New York City, and get on this ship, and make their way from New York City down to Bolivia. And Sundance Kid, I want to mention too, of course, is that
there's not really anything out west to. There's Mexico.
Yeah, pretty much. And so, the Sundance Kid at this time does get married. And so his wife that's with him, Etta, who takes the name of his mother-in-law, his mother, which is Place. So you usually see her referred to as Etta Place. Her and Sundance are now married.
Okay.
As kind of part of the plan. And she was very much involved. That's one thing that kind of gets left out a lot, that she comes into the picture at some point when they were still active, and apparently is part of the gang.
So she falls in love with him while he's an outlaw.
I mean, yeah. So she and Sundance make their way out east, and part of this plan, of course, was, we'll meet back up in New York City, but in the meantime, we're going to do our own thing. And part of one of their own things was Sundance and Etta were going to come back to Phoenixville, see his siblings, because his parents are actually both dead at this time. And then he's going to go visit the sisters, make a little stay here in Phoenixville as short as possible, and literally says that he was going to go out to the cemetery at Mars Cemetery and visit his parents' graves. So that happens, and so they're right here in Phoenixville. They get on the train right here at Columbia Station in Phoenixville. Take the train right from here right up to New York City. There's a period there where before they get to Phoenixville, I should say that they were in Buffalo, which is where there's a famous photo that's taken that you see almost all the time of Sundance and Etta. It's technically like their marriage photo.
Yeah, I've seen the one you're talking about.
Yeah.
Also, really quick aside, why was he called Sundance?
So
I get Kid.
So he was called Sundance just because. So when he made his way out west, he does cross paths with Butch Cassidy at one point in that Colorado territory area, but it was a brief encounter. And Sundance takes up a job herding cattle across territorial lines, which was
So he didn't plan on being an outlaw when you left.
No, he did not. No, and so he takes on this job, which is actually a very dangerous job at that time period. He's a freaking teenager, and he's herding cattle for hundreds of miles. So once they would reach their destination, they'd be like, "All right, well, we don't need you anymore. Like you're laid off." So rough. At one point, he ends one of these herding expeditions up in the Wyoming territory, and he stops in a small little town by the name of Sundance. So Sundance, Wyoming. So he's there, and this is the first time where he actually does something that would be deemed illegal. He steals a horse, a saddle, and a pistol. And they try to arrest him. The sheriff that was up there, they pursued him for a couple days or so. They catch up to him. He gets arrested, and he gets put in a jail cell in Sundance. While he's in the jail cell, the other guys that are there are these grizzled, like, older outlaw dudes who are like, who's this kid? And that's where he gets labeled the name the Sundance Kid. And then from
we gotta write a movie about Sundance.
Dude, I know. There's so many movies we have to make.
We gotta write a movie about the Sundance Kid.
Yeah. And that's where it happened, and that's also cool crossover. You guys, you guys love movies and everything, and so do I. Robert Redford, obviously starting the Sundance Film Festival.
Yep.
It's named after the character that he played, Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid.
Phoenixville.
Boom, Phoenixville again.
Yep.
But that's where it comes from.
Everywhere.
Yeah.
There is actually a bronze statue a memorial to Sundance Kid in Sundance, Wyoming.
I mean, can we have one of those here?
I would
Can we have
love.
Sundance Park.
We should.
We absolutely should have something.
Yeah, we absolutely.
I mean, I understand that might be a little questionable, but
no, I think it'd be great.
it'd kind of be really cool.
Yeah,
I think it's
100%.
cool. I think it's cool. I know a lot of people here in town would think it would be cool too.
yeah.
You know, it'd be really fun.
What?
So you know how I really want to, I don't know if I've mentioned this to you because you might actually have some semblance of an idea of how it might be possible. It is a dream of mine to take that spur line that of the rail line that runs through Phoenixville that is still owned by Norfolk Southern. I'd love to take that line from Oaks to wherever. I mean, I know there are some kind of bits and pieces of the rail that have been removed along the line towards Malvern, but somewhere in there, even if it's only a couple miles, and just have that essentially be like a tourist / like really regional commuter between like downtown Phoenixville and like the Oaks shopping center. Because at least then you could like charge fares and actually have people to be able to like go shopping out there. And then like on the weekends, have it just be kind of like a tourist railroad. You could have like a diesel electric for, you know, the normal stuff. And then like, you know, weekends and special events, have like a nice like old little steam locomotive do it. But it'd be really cool that like maybe in like the Halloween season or like once a month or like once a year or something like that, you have like a train robbery experience that would be like Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid robbing the train, and you're a passenger on the train as they rob it. And it's like, yeah, you get like a little history lesson that like you of all people could probably give of like, yeah, Sundance is from here. This is what they did out west, like just that kind of thing. I feel like would be really fun.
That'd be awesome. That would be cool.
I don't know how we can do that and make that happen, but I want to make that happen so bad.
Yeah, that would be really cool.
Yeah. But anyway, so we'll wrap up with the body, and then we got to get to some mysteries of Phoenixville, specifically the one that you brought the documentation for.
Yeah.
So what is the mystery and the potential of the body of the Sundance Kid in relation to Phoenixville?
That's where we were. Is we were talking about like their trip out to Bolivia.
Yes.
So obviously they did make it out of the country.
Absolutely, yeah. Oh, yeah, it was very successful. Their whole plan is it completely worked. Sundance Kid and Etta meet up with Butch Cassidy in New York City, and they get on the ship. They make their way to South America. They're in Bolivia. Apparently their initial thought was like, hey, we're just going to go to this place and lay low, you know. But apparently they obviously also couldn't help themselves and said, you know what? It's like literally something that like you said, you can just like it's something out of a movie. It's like I got this idea, and they devised this whole new plan to start robbing silver mine banks in South America, where all the silver mining was happening. They're like, oh well, these banks obviously have like tons of money. So they start doing it, and once again, they become fairly successful doing so for multiple years. So it wasn't until I think it was 1907. I'm pretty sure that's the date. 1907. You know, they think the Pinkertons definitely know that they're there. They actually there's an actual document that the Pinkertons obtained of their actual signatures of them boarding the actual ship. So they were onto them clearly, right? So that happens. They are still being watched, and then now the South American, police force and different things like that are onto these guys. Now they have more people after them again, and that's approximately in that time frame. Is when they try to rob the silver mine bank, and somebody was tipped off, and they're waiting for them. The place gets surrounded. It's like in the movie.
There's a scene in Red Dead 2 that is this exact thing takes place in America.
Yeah, and they get surrounded, and there's a shootout. They apparently refuse to surrender, and this is then
if they surrendered, they were just going to get hanged anyway.
Yeah, I mean they knew. They were like, yeah, duh, like might as well go out with a bang.
Yeah.
But one thing to point out too is, and this comes into play with the whole like mystery story at the end, is that Etta, Sundance's wife, in preparation of what they were going to do, they actually send Etta away. So she is not here at this time. They know that she is. He gives her a bunch of money. He sends her away. Apparently, she goes. The plan is that she actually went to somewhere in Europe, probably England, so that happens. So the shootout happens, and this is of course where the mystery starts. according to the police officials that were there, and then relayed back to the Pinkertons here, was that they were both killed. They were both killed in the shootout, and they're buried in the cemetery that's there in this little town that's still there today.
Yeah.
Was there potentially a reward for the South American authorities offered by the United States at this point?
I believe there was.
Okay.
I believe
so there would have been a motive to tell them. That
Oh,
they got them
absolutely.
both. That's what I just want to make sure. Is like, was there a reason for the South Americans to be like, yeah, we got them?
Yeah, and that ties into like the whole mystery of it, where it's like, you can see why they would have been like, oh yeah, they're dead. Yeah, we killed both of them. They're buried, and we buried them in the cemetery. But yet, no evidence has ever been brought to show that both of them were killed. There's a little more evidence towards the fact that Butch Cassidy might have been, but they're not even sure on him either. But the Sundance Kid for sure is one that they have never been able to prove. So they said that, and of course here, in the United States, the Pinkertons, who were after these guys for literally over 20 years, were like, oh yeah, well we got them, and so there is belief that it might have been used also as like a propaganda thing, where they were like, oh yeah, we got them, like we're the heroes, like because they were getting paid by the government to do this, so of course they're looking for their money.
Yeah.
So that's where we're at, and but the mystery doesn't take too long after that time period where people were starting to question, like, okay, well, where's the evidence? Because it was a thing, very well known, like especially in the West, and by that time with the access of photography being very widely available by that time period, it was really common to take photos of the dead bodies.
Yeah.
We've all
Especially with outlaws.
Outlaws. I mean, how many dead outlaw photos have you seen? That was a common thing. So we're like, okay, well, you guys didn't take any pictures of it? There's none. And there's no personal belonging identification type of things at all. It was all just like, oh yeah, they were shot and we buried them in this tiny little local cemetery, and that was it. So people started to question it, and then every so often it would come back to light again. The movie that in the late '60s, that definitely resurfaced the mystery. Like, hey, did this actually happen?
So in the movie, do they not show Sundance getting shot?
No.
Got it.
It's a freeze frame. It's a freeze frame of them essentially running out of the building.
Yeah.
It's one of those.
Yeah. So the thing is, though, they do run out of the building into like a U of men ready to shoot them.
Yeah.
Which is definitely not how it went down.
Yeah. And, well, that's the thing is like the assumption on the movie ending is basically you freeze frame on their last moment of being alive.
Yeah.
Like that's kind of where the movie ends. But because of that, there's also the possibilities like, oh, maybe they made it out.
Little Sopranos.
Yeah, exactly.
They have the AC-130 up there.
Yeah.
Yeah. So even in the movie, they don't depict it like in full. And so, as time goes on, there was rumors and not just rumors. This was a thing, right? This was, I have copies of the articles of just, things I put together from when I do my talk on the Sundance Kid, showing these actual newspaper articles, even from like the 1920s, 1930s, 1950s, of like actual newspaper articles of things coming out saying like, the real Sundance Kid lives in, it's like an Elvis thing. It's like the real Sundance Kid actually lives in, New Jersey. And here's a photo of this old guy who claims to be, he was the Sundance Kid.
Yeah.
Or there was this article that I had come across once that is this guy who says he's the son of the Sundance Kid. And had all this, and apparently had some little bit of evidence to kind of back him up, or even like maybe this guy's not full of it.
Some of his like stuff, I would assume.
Yeah, so it was really interesting. And then the mystery too, of course, of his wife, which has a lot more backing, where they're almost positive that she comes back to the United States and was living here up until an older age.
I'm sure you could find census records that would have. I mean, this is what I do for a living. You could probably go back through the census records and see if there's like a spot where somebody shows up out of nowhere who's the wrong age, who has a name that doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
Like, and then see if where that might have come from.
Yeah.
I've done that a few times. Where
Absolutely.
I've been trying to track somebody down, and I'm like, okay, wait, maybe it's something I'm not looking for. It's like, what if I stop looking for the specific last name and start looking at the addresses? Do I find somebody who was going by a different name? And that's happened a couple of times.
Yeah, definitely. So
Track down the people who sold the boy in the box. Did
Oh
that.
yeah.
Oh, yeah.
That was early.
That was me.
Yeah.
That was like, I'm still mad about this. That was me. I am the person who identified the boy in the box's parents.
Oh my God.
That was not the Philadelphia Inquirer.
Yeah.
That was not like that was me.
Yeah, we put out our video on it whenever it was. I think it was November or December.
It was
of
like
that year.
a few months after. It was early 2022, I think. No, late 2022.
Yeah. And then 2 or 3 weeks later, the Philadelphia Inquirer puts out their piece on it, and then
Still angry.
Yeah, and our work,
I'd be.
primarily his research is referred
It was
to
like
as web
3 weeks.
sleuths.
It was 3 weeks after we put our video out. I had gotten a call from the Vidocq Society in Philadelphia telling me I was right church, wrong pew, which was them telling me right family, wrong father, for the kid's actual parents. And then I also managed to, and I think I didn't use any of the names.
We didn't, yeah.
I think we did for Martha's family.
That we did.
Yes, but I identified, like, I was like, these are almost certainly this kid's adoptive parents and the ones who killed him. And,
Wow.
like, you can do it. It's a doable thing, but unfortunately, the Philadelphia Inquirer won't give you credit when you do it. It's fine. It's fine. I'm
Yeah,
not mad.
that would drive
I'm
me
mad.
nuts.
Yeah, yeah.
It's the same thing. Yeah, I remember like all the research that I
Yep.
do for Phoenixville or the area, and then seeing it being just like, oh yeah, no, I discovered that. I'm like,
Well, I'll tell you, anything that we do that we use your research, we will credit you aggressively.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because I know how it feels.
yeah,
So, potentially he got out of Bolivia,
yeah.
and the possibility is that he ended up.
Here, maybe in Phoenixville.
Would he have lived here, or would it be that he like lived in another city and then when he died, they buried him here?
It could be either or.
I mean, he was born. When 1870s.
1867, I believe it was.
Good.
And
Yeah, 1867. So he could very well have lived into the 40s.
absolutely, yeah, so there's belief that, you know, and there is a decent amount of belief that he was not killed. He absolutely escapes. He comes back to the United States. There's a belief that he lived out west somewhere at one point, but he moves around a couple different times. So there's one of the things that seems somewhat likely is, you know, out at Mars Cemetery, where we talked about a little bit ago there, that his parents are buried there, right? So his parents are buried there. His sister is buried there. They have a big, you know, plot of graves that, you know, his parents had died way before that. So they already owned this large plot. There's a possibility that, you know, when in planning that and they owned these plots, that the one sister, who's the sister, of course, too, that he also stayed very close with, there's a belief if anybody would have known, it was her. She's the one who lived in the mansion house at the Pick. And that there is a possibility that he might actually be buried in a plot right next to the sister. So is it likely? It is a very good possibility. You know, he would have obviously had to have been buried somewhere. Could it have been somewhere else randomly? Yeah, maybe. But what leads this to, you know, some of that Phoenixville connection is that, you know, the cemetery was there. He definitely was aware of his parents. He did visit the family's plot, the parents' plot, before he goes to Bolivia. Did he make a plan then for him to come back and be buried there? Or did his sister take care of it? You know, type of thing. What's really interesting about it was there was always that belief has been around for years. There was a guy that I used to work with at one of my old jobs. He grew up in Phoenixville. His job before he came to where I was, he started there in the 80s. But before that, he was the gravedigger and caretaker of Mars Cemetery. And he lived in the caretaker's house, which is still standing there. And this is the guy who, you know, did all the work. You know, he did all the work at the cemetery. He was approached by authorities. This is 100% true. He was approached by authorities at one point to dig up the father's grave at Mars Cemetery to see if they can match DNA on a body that was apparently buried in Bolivia that was always believed to have been the Sundance Kid grave.
Yeah.
So this actually happened. And they did a DNA study, and 100% didn't match.
Really?
Yep. So we know that for sure. That absolutely happened. And that, was a little lasting effect from the movie. That was I think that happened in the 70s, I believe. So there was that actually happened. So moving forward down the road, 2017, there was a small film production company in the area that wanted to pitch a series to PBS to do almost like a histories, mysteries type of thing, and they had approached the Chamber of Commerce here in Phoenixville and said, hey, this is we want to film stuff here in Phoenixville. Do you have any ideas? Do you guys, because at that time, we're all connecting back here, right? 2017, Phoenixville was definitely happening, right? And it was drawing attention, these kinds of things. And so the Chamber, doing all the history stuff, for the Chamber, even back then, they said, well, let's point you in the direction of Ryan. Ryan might have an idea for you. So they said, is there any stories like that? I'm like, oh, well, the Sundance Kid. So once again, they were blown away because they were like, we didn't even know this was a thing.
Yeah.
So they filmed this whole little pilot episode, which, in the long run, none of it ever happened.
Yeah.
Right. But they filmed the pilot episode, but we filmed different scenes in Phoenixville. And we went out to the cemetery. So we went out to the cemetery, and this is the part where I was filmed in. So we're out there, and I'm talking about the Sundance Kid, and we're talking about the graves and everything like that. They actually hired a company to come in and do a ground sonar of the graves. And they filmed it live. I filmed the shot right there. When the guy came out there, I saw him. The guy had no idea really what he was doing. He was just like, I'm here. It was a common thing to do, for his job, but he was didn't
grasp the severity of it.
Severity of it. So he, does this thing, puts his equipment on. I standing there watching him doing the thing, and the graves are in order, and he does the ground sonar, across the mom and dad's grave and the sister's grave, and like I said, right to the left of the sister, there is this weird little opening, and Mars Cemetery is very packed in that cemetery. So it does look a little odd. So that was where we wanted him to kind of go across this whole thing. So he does it, and these results come back within minutes. He's got it on the screen. So we're all standing there waiting for the results to come back, and the results come up on the screen. And I personally was like, it's just one of these things where it's just been around for years, and you're like, is something actually going to come up, kind of thing. So we're standing there looking at it, and the guy looks over and he says, here's the mom and dad, here's the sister. I mean, you can see clear as a bell in the ground sonar.
You see their bones,
so you don't.
What is it? What are you seeing on the screen?
So what you see is a couple different things. So you'll actually see soil disturbance. So you'll actually see a change in the soil, and then you'll actually see an object,
like a coffin
object. It will tell you the dimensions of the item and also how far down in the ground it is. So when they did this, clear as a bell. You can see, 6 feet down, coffin, and then next to the sister, there is another object in the ground, clearly in the ground, but instead of it being 6 feet down, it was 8 feet down. And it was the exact same size as the other coffins.
So anybody digging down would get to 6 feet and go, oh,
yeah,
well, there's nothing here.
Yeah. What? And the guy said, and as a professional, he was like, yeah, this is definitely unusual. He's like, in a cemetery, these other ones are clearly it's pretty classic. He says somebody intentionally put whatever is in here 8 feet down, not 6 feet down. That was very clear. And the size of it matched the size of the other coffins. So there's that.
What better place to hide a body than underneath another body?
Yeah. Not even underneath another body, though. Just deeper than the other bodies right next
and
to
no
it.
headstone.
Yeah, no headstone. That to me sounds very plausible.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's something that obviously people definitely want to believe. But that is...
And it would be so easy to do the DNA testing.
Oh, yeah.
If you could get the permission to exhume the remains from any of those graves, as well as whatever, if there is, obviously to confirm that there's a coffin down there, but if you could dig down, get it, get in, take a DNA sample from that body. All you need to do is go to the next grave over, and
Yeah.
like that's
Not
an incredibly easy thing to do
not
in terms of the broad scheme of things. Like that is very simple.
Yeah, I think it's just one of those subjects that like, there's been like little things, like clearly, like I said, at one point somebody dug up the dad and did that, and it was proven to not be a match.
Yeah.
And then we did this thing where we actually had a ground sonar done that showed something else, and so and I think other than that, it's never taken that next.
Yeah, you really wouldn't even need to take another sample. You could just use the one you have on file from the dad.
Yeah, it's already there.
Like you just need to dig up the one body, and you're technically not even digging up a body necessarily. You're checking to see if there's a body there.
Yeah.
And then once you're down there, you're going, well, I mean, we might as well take a little chip off the bone. Like,
Chip off the old block.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, it's just a crazy subject history that is super cool to Phoenixville, obviously, but it's also a subject of people of interest internationally.
Yeah.
Like there's no doubt about
That's
it.
really cool.
It's something that is out there. People talk about it all the time. They're just like, what happened? What actually happened?
Yeah. That is a phenomenal story. And then in terms of other mysteries.
Yeah, we got some. We do still have a little bit of time.
Yeah. So the mystery that you've brought with you for documentation. What's in the box?
Yeah. So this is pretty cool. This is a pretty crazy subject.
Do you want to grab the materials?
Yeah. So I have
I'm up on this table.
Yeah. So this whole box is filled. I brought a couple of these things here to kind of give you a better visual of some of the things here. So the subject that we're talking about here is the cold case murder that happened here in Phoenixville in 1952. And that is the case of Marguerite Chioda, the young woman who was murdered here in Phoenixville. Body was found, and the case was never solved. That is, cold case as it gets.
This is so this is my favorite kind of.
Yeah.
Yep.
And this stuff is fascinating. This whole story is crazy. How I even have these items is crazy.
Yeah.
So
when Pete told us that you had all of this, I was like, oh wow.
Yeah.
It was a pain in the ass for me to get that kind of information from 2004 for another case.
Yeah. It's just really wild. And, it's a subject that, has obviously been around town for forever. It's subject even for me where it's obviously a sensitive subject. Some of her family members are still in the area. I'm like Facebook friends with one of her like nephews. Like, yeah.
That's nuts.
But it's also interesting too because my family was here at the time. My grandmom, who was literally almost the exact same age as her, went to the same dances at the social clubs, which is, she left the Slovak club in Phoenixville, and that was the last time she was seen. My grandma went to those same dances, so she actually knew who she was.
Yeah.
And I used to say it's my grandmom about it. Like, do you remember this? And she'd be like, yeah, it was like, obviously the biggest thing in town, for multiple years. And then
I remember like kids that I knew from high school dying, but none were murdered.
Yeah.
Like, I can only imagine.
Yeah.
It was a crazy deal, a big deal. And for a town, in that time period, this type of stuff doesn't, even to this day, this doesn't happen.
Yeah.
I can't remember the last time somebody was shot not in self-defense in Phoenixville.
Yeah. So it's so unusual. And so it's still a subject that people bring up all the time. People ask me about it all the time. And I just, of all the subjects that we talk about history-wise in Phoenixville, this is, I just happen to have these things. And I can tell you, too, a little bit about the background of that. So they're like, how the hell do you have these things? So, years ago, it's probably about, I'd say close to 15 years ago, maybe 12 to 15 years ago. I'm just, I've been doing Phoenixville history stuff here in town since the late 90s. 99 is like kind of right around that time period, the revitalization stuff I was involved in. And, I used to, even to this day, I have people just randomly contact me and they'll be like, hey, we're cleaning out our attic. Like we're going to throw this stuff out. Do you want it? and I'm like, yes. I never say no.
If you ever need somebody to pass the torch to, let me know.
Okay.
I am currently that for my family.
Yeah.
I have multiple boxes of my grandfather and grandmother's things that I saved from them giving to like Goodwill.
Yeah, I've been trying to do the same thing.
Same here. I'm same thing with even one of my favorite subjects is my own personal family's history.
Same. Yeah.
So I've been the receiver of all the things, which is awesome. But I've also been the receiver of Phoenixville things for a long time. And this guy who I've never met before, but he lived in town, just randomly contacted me and said, "Hey, I know you're in the Phoenixville history stuff, and I am moving, and I have lived here for a long time, and I found a box of stuff in my garage." He says, and the story is that he was just driving around town one night, and and I've done the same thing, is trash picking. And when people are putting bulk stuff out, you can find all kinds of random things, right? And so he literally was driving by and he looked and there was a house that was being sold. They were clearing the house out and they are out in front of on the sidewalk, literally for trash, was all these boxes of things. So he stops, looks through the stuff, grabs a couple of these boxes and brings it. And it literally apparently was sitting in the dude's garage for 20 years or something. So he comes across it again and says, "You know what? I don't want any of this stuff. I want to put it in somebody else's hands." So I said, "Yeah, like I said, I never say no." I meet up with the guy here in town, and he literally gives me this box. And initially, when he had told me, was, "Oh, there's some cool photos and some Phoenixville sports stuff, and this and that." And it really was. I mean, the other stuff in the box was there's some really cool shots of the Phoenixville high school football team from 1910.
Oh, wow.
Just some cool, really great photos. And then he goes, "There's this other stuff in the box. It's a little sensitive, but it was in the boxes of stuff that I got off this curb." And he says, "Do what you want with it." He says, "If you literally want to throw it out, you can throw it out." And I said, "That's obviously likely never going to happen." But he said, and that's that. He says, so the stuff that he said to not throw, whatever you want to do with, the stuff that was out for trash was outside of a house of a guy by the name of Wayne Jones. Wayne Jones was a reporter and writer for the Phoenixville newspaper. He had initially written articles and things about the murder when it had happened. A couple years go by, and in 1954, this murder is obviously not solved, right? So he's like, "What's the deal?" He now becomes, I want to say obsessed, but it literally sounds like a plot. It's you get, where I'm getting at.
Yeah,
this guy dives into it deep, and this is in 1954. So he dives in. He says, he obviously personally felt like, this is weird. Why is this not being looked into anymore? This hasn't been solved. People in town still want to know. So he takes it upon himself to become a private investigator in the murder while he's still working for the newspaper.
Get it?
So the stuff that came off that was literally bound for the trash the next morning was these items.
Wow.
That were from him.
It makes me wonder how many things in history that could have been super useful have just been thrown out.
Oh, absolutely.
Just because people weren't thinking. Please, for anyone watching, if your family has important looking historical documents, even if it's just as simple as birth certificates, donate them to your local library, to the County Records Association, to your local historical association, anything. You never know how important that document might end up being somewhere down the line for some reason you never could have conceived of.
Yep. Absolutely.
But I mean, the boy in the box thing, I was able to confirm I was able to find this girl, Martha. I was able to, I can't remember what her actual name was. There's 3 different M names that she used. But I found her in her high school yearbooks, confirmed she existed, was able to track down her parents by checking for that last name in the schools they were supposed to work for. I found them, and then I was able to use census records to find their house. Couldn't have done any of that if nobody had bothered to scan that yearbook.
Yeah.
And it's something that small. somebody scanned a yearbook and I solved a murder. Like, again, literally, what was that, 70 years later?
Yeah, about that.
Yeah, I wasn't alive. Most of my family wasn't alive when this happened.
This is the same time frame.
Yeah, so it's like, you never know. This isn't to toot my own horn about the Philadelphia thing again, but I kind of want to. But no, like this kind of thing, Ryan wouldn't have this if not for just some guy being like, that looks important, and grabbing it.
I mean, this, this literally was going it was literally in the trash already.
Yeah, like, would have disappeared forever.
And then he had the wherewithal to be like, like I said, I think we all know that I have a passion for Phoenixville history, and so he recognized that and was like, I want to get these into the right hands. Yeah. And I'm like, and I'm gonna.
Me, I don't care.
Yeah. and that's where, that's obviously how I view the items, is like, I've always wanted to use these items for good, and hopefully, this guy Wayne Jones, like, bring him the satisfaction that he wanted. But also like that guy who saved it out of the trash, and then also, of course, the family, number one, and so it's just crazy. The guy, a little more about him. So 1956. I'm sorry, I mixed up my years there a little bit, but in 56 is when he starts doing stuff, and this isn't just like a one-time thing. He starts doing this private investigation thing, and it lasts for years, literally years. He takes it upon himself to interview people, interview Phoenixville police officers, interview apparent, possible witnesses, pretty much anybody he can get his hands on. And a lot of these people were never actually even interviewed in the initial investigation.
It's not surprising.
Shocking.
Not
shocking,
surprising,
right?
Yep.
So it's really classic. These are people that he recognized and was like, why wasn't that person interviewed? So then he was doing it.
We just did this with the Betsy Arsma case.
Yeah.
One guy who should have been extensively interviewed, and they didn't, and it turned out that he almost certainly did it.
Yeah. And it's interesting that you'll see this, and it's this guy was obviously a very good writer. He is very good, at identifying things and documenting. I mean, he's very detailed. Dates, times. I'm interviewing so and so at 2 p.m. on Wednesday, February 22nd, 1956. Like, it's just sure. Yeah, so this is like one of the things, but this one has a lot of interesting information in it, because in there you can see at the top there where he's actually describing who he's interviewing.
Yeah.
And it's just really interesting to read through. There is this really interesting crossover where Wayne, there's another guy going into, I think it's the late 80s. I'll tell you here in a second. 1989. There's another man who by the name of Daniel Botero Sr., who also becomes super interested and fascinated with the case. He kind of almost takes the torch is passed to this other guy. So there's also this interesting crossover communications between Wayne and Daniel. So now he's telling Daniel, like, this is the stuff that I found out. So then there's some stuff in here also from that guy from 1989.
This is really detailed.
And they become friends.
Yeah.
Like, there's even a couple pieces that were in the box. There were actual Christmas cards that they sent each other.
Oh, really?
Just like personally. It's just just kind of cool. Yeah. But it showed that they had built a clear relationship.
Yeah.
And then this guy takes it on for a period of time. And then, it, once again, it just kind of faded off again for years. And of course we all know, like,
anyone in here?
Yeah, within the past, so many years, the interest in cold cases and everything like that has really grown.
Yep.
So her name has popped up in multiple different aspects. I think it was even earlier this year or late last year where they did a short little feature of her on Dateline NBC. It was on their social media. It got shared into like the Phoenixville groups and everything, and some people were tagging me. They're like, "Oh, you should talk to Ryan."
Yeah.
There's
I love some of these notes.
There's some people that know. Of course, there's some people that know that I have this stuff. Like obviously Mayor Pete and some other people that I know here in town and have. But most people haven't even seen it.
Wow.
Okay, so And there's obviously now that it's on here, but most people don't even know that I have these things.
Yeah.
It's something I think that it really could hopefully really could come into play. Because I've seen there's some other podcasts that have touched on it, but none of them even know I have this stuff.
Yeah.
So
That's nice.
that's a thing. So there's multiple types of things like this. What Aiden was looking at here, it just really pretty much just reads, the unofficial report investigation conducted in 1956 by Phoenixville police officers Donald Folk and Natalie DePete.
My great-grandfather's name.
Great-grandfather. And Wayne Jones, a private investigator of the Daily Republican, which was the newspaper here in town.
Was that the one that Steel City was in?
This is the one that the Colonial took over the bank building. Yeah. So the Daily Republican existed from the late 1800s until it ceased to exist in the 1910s. It was a daily newspaper. So this guy was, a legitimate writer and becomes an investigator and yada, yada, yada. I mean, it goes into like full details. There's multiple other...
Yeah, I can see, you guys can't see it. There is a very hefty looking box of files.
Do you want to put the box on the table?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, show them the box.
This is the box.
I'm glad you dropped it for a minute. That was helpful.
So there's just like a lot of stuff. Some of the stuff is just like
newspaper
stuff. These are interesting.
What is that?
So I have here in this envelope and then also here, and you'll see what these are here. And you're probably going to be like, oh, this is pretty crazy. So there's a couple scrapbooks. The one scrapbook is all scrapbooks of clippings of newspaper articles that this guy put together. Anything he could possibly get his hands on. This scrapbook are 8x10 prints of all of the crime scene photos.
No way.
No.
Yeah. So those are the prints. And these here are the negatives.
Oh, no way.
Yeah, as you can see clearly, written on here, there's Kyoto, 1953.
Yep.
And there's that. So pretty much these negatives are pretty much all of these prints here.
Yeah.
But these are all, nice enlarged prints. You can see this is where they found the body.
That's phenomenal.
This
is when they're finding the body, I should say.
Oh my God, they're so high quality.
Yeah, they're really clear shots.
What's crazy is looking at these, and I don't know, maybe we'll be able to get a couple of pictures of them for when this goes up, but it really looks like these are almost reenactment photos. That's how clear they are.
You forget just how good of quality film was.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm a big photography guy, and one of the things I love collecting with photography are the negatives. I want to get my hands on the negatives. Either they be glass plate negatives from the 1800s or paper negatives, because I can scan them. I have the ability to scan negatives and stuff from my house, and they just turn out incredibly well. And like Aiden was saying here too, it is weird where it does, like some of those photos look like it's a reenactment.
Yeah, it's just, also because the clothing is like, it was the 50s, so it's not that. It's not the kind of clothing that you're like, this is like the 1800s. It looks similar enough, especially on adults. When you see a kid wearing a tweed suit, you're a little confused, but that's the body itself.
That's the body there, yeah.
But if you look at the adults, there's a guy just wearing jeans, a sweatshirt, and a ball cap, and it's just like, it's jarring.
Yeah. Yeah, if you could send some of the digital versions of the images over for this episode, that'd be fantastic.
Yeah, sure.
Jeez.
Yeah, so what's really interesting, too, about, which
a wicker basket for her body.
Yeah. There's so many different aspects to the case. I've myself obviously have read through all these things.
Yeah.
And just, all this stuff that, evidence and clues and just a lot of weird shenanigans and, things that had occurred that have kept it a cold case for this long. One of the things that we're looking at right there in those photos there is that, when they find the body in the bottom of a cesspool out, in Schuylkill Township, what's really interesting about it is that kind of adds to, and Wayne talks about it a little bit in these interviews, like, how did you guys know to look in the bottom of a giant cesspool? So there was a lot of like weird things where, like, when they find the body, like, how did they actually find the body? Or like how did they know it was there?
That's what I mean. Like the stop sign, the road sign. Like this picture could have been taken yesterday.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, it's just and of course there's a plethora of other things that go into this case where, obviously who did it.
Yeah.
And there's theories that Wayne talks about in these interviews where he does come up with his actual.
Yeah, I saw that he has a theory for a suspect.
Yeah, he has this theory for a suspect. This piece here is what I was talking about a little bit, where the other guy in 1989 who kind of takes over the interest in the case, Botero, this is them communicating. And so they actually communicate back and forth with their actual theories as well, where Botero says, oh, well, I think it was this, and then Jones thinks it's that. There's a lot of interesting theories, of course, behind it. This is his actual pro forma for an historical study into the Marguerite Kyoto homicide by Dan Botero II, June 1989. So this is him putting together all his stuff, saying, this is what I think happened.
Wow.
So there's belief, of course, that, one of the theories that is talked about in here is that there was a thought about it being a priest.
Oh, really?
Yeah. There's, theories about, it being somebody that was connected with, people of prominence here in Phoenixville, where it was, pushed under the rug and things just didn't happen conveniently type of thing. Because one thing we know for sure is that, clearly the investigation that had started ended, it seemed to end way too fast.
Yeah.
And then it was just like, that was it.
Yeah.
And since then it's been all people like us who have gained interest and been like, oh, let's try and figure this out.
Oh, I'm sitting here like, if I had this number of files on the JonBenet Ramsey case, I would, we'd
be done by now.
We'd be done by now.
Yeah.
This is actually an incredible amount of stuff that you've collected.
Yeah.
Yeah, we may ask to borrow this for
I'm
a
not
video
just
at
talking
some
like
point.
Astabara. If you want to like work on this together and make a documentary and write a book, I'm there with you.
Yeah. I would love to. I mean, I really think, I'm definitely someone who believes too, like this kind of stuff. Like, I think this stuff landed in my hands for a reason.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, this stuff was literally in the trash and got saved from going to the landfill.
Yeah.
And then it winds up in my hands how many years later. It is kind of crazy to think. And so I think
we're gonna have some conversations about what we can do with this, because I think between the resources we have and the resources you have, this is something that we could actually do.
yeah, be pretty cool.
I never imagined it was going to be this degree of stuff.
Yeah, this
I
is
was
phenomenal.
expecting, like a few police reports, a couple of newspaper clippings, some, handwritten. This is like proper private investigator work, and years of it
Yeah,
that you just have.
yeah. Yeah, I just wanted to read a little thing off of here. This is something that that was sent. Dan Botero is talking about this, and he says, the police responded in the newspaper by saying the individual she identified had never been considered a suspect, therefore was never questioned. But they did say that her identification of the odd combination of undergarments was correct, and that it was information never released to the public. There's a lot of things like that.
Yeah.
Like random little details.
Yeah.
People that, like I said before, I think the thing that always stood out to me was the fact that like there were some people that clearly should have been interviewed and investigated, and they never were until these guys did something about it.
Yeah, and it is crazy looking back on old cases. You can see where standard operating procedure as we have it today came from. Just from
Absolutely.
from all of these cases where it's like, okay, why didn't you do that? It's second nature to us now. Even as I'm not a cop, but like I study what cops do in terms of investigation. So I look at it and I'm like, okay, well, this seems obvious now, but back in 1954. I mean, just social conventions were so different that you didn't necessarily know if something was even okay to ask. There were things that it wasn't okay to ask that should have been asked. And then you see these big, high-profile cases, probably not this one outside of Phoenixville, but some of these bigger ones, like the Boy in the Box, like JonBenet Ramsey, where it's standard operating procedure as it exists today. It was built upon the mistakes made in those cases. And so it's frustrating to look back and go, this could have been solved. Betsy Ardsma, same thing. Could have been solved if they knew the mistake they were making. And so, unfortunately, and the older the case gets, the harder it is to go back and fix those mistakes. That's why I'm kind of harping on the JonBenet thing so much right now, is because it's not too late. These people are still alive. Almost everybody involved in that case is still here. There's time to solve it. We don't have to let those mistakes, we might never actually convict somebody, but it's not too late to pin it on someone.
Yep.
So, and this is just phenomenal.
Yeah. And I was always curious, even what you said here, like there's a lot of names in these things, a lot of names, all Phoenixville people primarily. And I actually just never sat down and did this part of it, but to actually see if any of those people are actually still alive. It is possible. Some of these interviews he did in 1956, my grandma was born in 1930. Like she would be older now, but she absolutely could still be alive. And that's at the extreme. I mean, if somebody was interviewed in this who was, a little bit younger, say they were 20 years old, they could definitely still be alive, maybe in their 80s or something like that. And like I said, the family members are definitely around the area.
Yeah.
So, there's that. But yeah, it's pretty fascinating.
Yeah, I am astonished.
Yeah.
It's phenomenal.
Yeah. And it'd be cool to, definitely we can continue. Maybe it's the right avenue for
I think so.
for the items. And yeah.
Also, if we could get digital scans of these, that would be phenomenal.
Yeah.
Just so that, we don't have to pass them back and forth.
Yeah, it's so, it's just really interesting. Yeah. I mean, there's just, there was always the theory, of course, with the murder was she sexually assaulted?
Did they check?
They apparently did. But there's also questions about that as well.
Yeah.
And some of that is, you'll talk about that in here, where they thought that, she wasn't, because initially they had found blood in certain areas, and then later on found out that she might have actually been menstruating. So it gets very detailed.
Yeah.
Into this kind of stuff, into these interviews as well. Because like two of the ones that are really interesting to me a lot into this stuff, what he interviewed, were these two police officers who were literally police officers when it happened. So they convey some stuff where on that end of it, where they're like, so and so, maybe we should talk to these people because we knew that they were maybe around the scene and it wasn't necessarily followed up with, So and then there's all kinds of other stuff where they give their opinions, which is also really interesting.
Yeah.
So
absolutely.
yeah. Wow, that's cool stuff.
All right, well, we have so much to talk about off camera.
We do.
Speaking of which, it is time to get off camera.
It is indeed.
All right. Well, Ryan, thank you. This has
been a phenomenal episode. Thank you so much.
Sure. Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, I cannot wait to talk more about this and to review some of this stuff with you.
Yeah, if you're game, we would love to have you on again, because there's definitely plenty more to
especially as we
discuss.
progress through this.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Do a bi-monthly check-in of where are we.
Yeah, exactly.
But all right, yeah. Is there have you written anything, any books or anything like anything you want to tell the people to check out?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I haven't written any books, but that's on my list, and I get bugged about it a lot, and I probably should. But I've written articles and stuff, so I publish in a bunch of different magazines and online websites and everything, and I do a lot of lectures, historical lectures of Phoenixville in the area.
You do come here and do History on the Rocks.
I do History on the Rocks, so if anybody hasn't checked that out, it's awesome. I work with one of our awesome mixologist bartenders here in town, Celso. He sets up a cocktail list that correlates with the talk, and I do a different subject every time. Yep. We've done everything from the Sundance Kid to the history of art and design in Phoenixville, and we actually just talked yesterday about making our plan for 2026.
Yep. Nice.
So
figure out. I want to give people the right Instagram for him so they know where to go. But I know he was talking about changing it.
Yeah.
Like right now it's CVL Boozy Mixologist. But
yes. And I post all of my stuff on my Instagram. It's the best. The best way to follow me for my stuff is my Instagram. It's Conroy's Convoy.
Nice.
That's great.
And I post everything on there. Every talk I'm doing, even if it's not Phoenixville, I do talks. I'm doing a talk in a couple weeks up in Bluebell. about the Underground Railroad in Montgomery County. So different variety of subjects. You know, the history in the rocks is happening, and you know, February is going to be Underground Railroad, and I also have I do a
You know what weekend that's going to be?
I'm not sure yet. We have to pick the date. Yeah, we're going to pick
I was
the
just going
date.
to say, if it does happen to be the weekend that Steven's here, that would be fun too.
Yeah, that would
we
be
could
fun.
probably get a big draw for that.
Yeah, we could probably coordinate that.
Yeah, that's something. You could get us involved in coordinating that one because one of our buddies is a big history content creator. And if we could, he's going to be up here the first week of February. So we could probably use that to kind of like, you know, come out to History on the Rocks and you can meet Steven.
Yeah.
Actually, yeah, and during that week that we're recording, if you would want to come on for an episode, that'd be fantastic.
Yeah.
We would love to have
Yeah,
you.
for sure. Yeah. So yeah, follow me on Instagram. That's the best way to.
Conroy's Convoys?
Conroy's Convoy.
Is there any underscore dash or
Nope,
anything?
that's
Okay,
one
just
word.
Conroy's Convoys.
Yeah, Conroy. Conroy.
All right. Perfect.
Yeah, that's the way to follow me. And
I think it's convoy singular, right? Conroy's Convoy.
correct.
Okay.
Convoy.
Yep.
Conroy's Convoy.
And then you could. I have a couple other things you can follow me on from there. If I collect photography and my other businesses, I sell vintage. So
Oh, nice.
yeah, Northside Vintage,
All right.
Phoenixville based, and we might be doing some pop ups in here as well.
Oh, nice.
So me and
Awesome.
Celso were talking about that. So
Sweet.
As long as it doesn't take over our entire living room.
yeah,
For a
well,
month, yeah.
yeah, exactly. And I even told Celso, I was like, we could do it was his idea, and then I was like, and I said it's so easy for me to literally we do the pop up and I just pack it up.
Yeah.
That's what I do when I set up at markets. So
Yeah. That's a good point.
That'd
Yeah.
be wonderful.
everybody else can use the room.
Yeah.
All
Yeah.
right,
Yeah.
perfect. Well,
Yeah.
thank you so much. This has been awesome. I'm so excited to look over this stuff. Everybody who's watching, it's episode 5, 6. I don't know. We haven't figured out our
6.
intro yet.
Oh, yeah.
Or our intro and outro.
We may just never have one.
We'll get there eventually. Maybe we'll start doing what we do for History Unhinged when we have the time.
Yeah,
All right.
That's kind of the key.
Yeah. Speaking of which, new History Unhinged is probably on there, depending on when this comes out.
Yeah. That should be.
Nobody watched the last 2, so you know,
dare you.
go check those out maybe.
Yeah.
All right. Well, bye guys.
See ya.
Nice.
This was awesome. Thank you so much.
Yeah, of
Yeah, this is
course.
phenomenal.